Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining. This is Exploratory seminar. Today, I'd like to introduce Exploratory version 12, which we released this week. And the theme is a paradigm shift. So I like to talk about why this release is a paradigm shift, and then especially focusing on around this new feature called data wrangling with AI prompt. So let me introduce myself before it gets started. My name is Kan Nishida, CEO at Exploratory. We started Exploratory back in 2016 to democratize data science. Since then, we've been improving this tool called Exploratory. We also provide a training and a seminar to help more people understand and also use data science technique and methods. And since from the beginning, we've been talking about our mission is to democratize data science, but recently we start realizing it's not really about the data science, it's really about the data. So I think we want to make it more data more available for all the people in the world, so that they can use their data, or maybe they collected the data from somewhere else, regardless, by using the data to make better decisions for themselves and all their organizations and their community. Exploratory provides five sort of the pillars of the functionality. One is the data access, and then you can also do the data wrangling, which is actually today's theme, but the transform, the clean the data, and then using the charts to visualize the data, or using analytics to analyze the data to find the deeper insights that helps you make better decisions. And once you find the insights, you want to communicate with others. So Exploratory provides notes and dashboard to communicate your findings. Okay. So the data access, you can access to various types of data through the data from the database to cloud apps to cloud storage, and a remote file or a local file. There's many different type of data sources. Once you import the data, you have the summary view to get the quick insights on the data, and also data wrangling. So this is really the main theme of today. So until version 12, we've been sort of improving the UI experience of doing, addressing various types of data wrangling related problems. But today we are going to change. And then the data visualization, it provides various types of charts and various types of functionalities to visualize the data and find the patterns and the trends easier. And then from statistics to machine learning algorithms, you can employ various types of analytics methods and algorithms to find the deeper insights. And then it's easy to create and also easy to publish and manage. This is a first-class dashboard you can create with Exploratory. And last not least is that you can create a note, interactive notes with a WYSIWYG editor. Okay, so those are the functionality of the Exploratory. And before we get started, also we updated our logo to have this kind of telescope type looking logo, because we think, just like Galileo Galilei, proves that actually Earth is the one who's moving around in the universe. You want to have some sort of hypothesis or some kind of theory you want to actually prove or disprove, and then you want to actually look at that data. Back in the day, he was actually looking at skies. But if you are just looking at the skies every day at the nighttime with your eyes, and the skies or the stars are not going to tell you anything, you actually have to have something like a hypothesis. Then you can actually look into the data and then find some patterns to help you make decisions or prove or disprove your hypothesis. We think the data is the same way. So we put this kind of sort of idea of we should look into the data more proactive way instead of a receptive way. So that was kind of a background of this new logo. Anyway, so let's get started. This time the theme is a paradigm shift. So I like to start with a little bit of the paradigm shift itself, the theory of a paradigm shift. This theory was introduced by scientific philosopher Thomas Kuhn in 60s. Since then, so this like word paradigm shift became kind of everybody use kind of popular words, but it really is a scientific progress that doesn't happen linearly. Well, it happened linearly in the existing paradigm, but then there are many like anomalies and exceptions that old paradigm couldn't address. So their revolutionary like new paradigm appears, and then science actually shifted to from the old paradigm to the new paradigm. And then in the new paradigm, people start filling the gap and then improving until it doesn't work. So he used a couple of examples, but for example, the kind of famous example is like from geocentric to heliocentric, right? So back in the day, everybody believed, or most people believed, the geocentric world, the Earth was the center and everything was surrounding Earth. But then that model couldn't explain many of the planetary movement, some of the stars and planet, and moved in some kind of like a different, well, kind of a little bit of like outlier way. At the beginning, people thought that was just a kind of exception, but at some point, like it couldn't ignore because there are so many anomalies, and then like the models start getting more complicated to explain such anomalic movements. And then like Copernicus came up with the idea, or like some other scientist or some, philosopher, whatever, like I came start thinking it's actually maybe the opposite. The Earth might be the one who's moving. But then until Galileo Galilei came, and then he developed a new type of the telescope, looking at the skies, and then observing the Earth, sun or Mercury and other planets to prove that actually the Earth could be moving. It could move around itself, but also could move around the sun. So what happened was like planetary motion didn't match the geocentric model, and then the new paradigm was appeared. And then we don't think it's a new paradigm. We don't really think twice about it today, but that's because we live in this new paradigm. And the same thing in the physics, from Newton's law, physics laws. Back in the day, he basically tried to understand what the gravity was, and he introduced the idea. But then people started noticing some of the extreme cases like light speed or time dilation type of things was. At the first, it was like anomaly, but then became some kind of like a big topic, especially for this man like Einstein. So he introduced a new concept, the theory of relativity. So every paradigm works until it doesn't. And then once you're in a new paradigm, you don't think twice about old paradigm. So usually the paradigm is a set of acceptance theories and methods and assumptions that guide scientific inquiry. And then what happens, like I said, anomalies start showing up, and people start thinking. People usually at the beginning think it's like that's something that maybe the way people think about those anomalies is wrong, or those anomalies shouldn't be there, and then we can forget about it. But then you start accumulate, and then when the existing framework can no longer explain such anomalies, then a new paradigm appears. And we think the paradigm shift is happening in the data wrangling. When we say data wrangling, it's really about the data transformation or maybe cleaning up the data. It can be like join and merge multiple data sets, or you can create calculations or aggregate the numbers, all types of things you can work with data. So back in the days, not that long ago, but typically, like when you have to work with the data, like people thought about typical way was like programming, either like Python or R, or it could be JavaScript or whatever you have. That was working on, or maybe could be SQL queries. But the problem was like it was not like everybody was a programmer. It was not everybody can be proficient easily. So That's when we came up with the idea. It's like, you know what? Why don't we just introduce some kind of a UI, but also focusing on our command, especially around something called dplyr, which was the data wrangling package in R. And we thought that itself was a revolutionary, but we can actually make it more accessible by building the UI around it. So 2016, we actually launched Exploratory as a company, and they introduced a product called Exploratory. Back in the day, I'm not sure like how many of you guys actually have seen it at the version one. It's literally like you type on in the dplyr command or R command, and then to interact with data. And then like right hand side, there's a step. So you can actually do like sort of data wrangling in a step by step manner, going back and forth, change the order. But really the main interaction is through this command interface. The but then the problem was still even like this like a command idea, not like writing a script or programming, but we thought it was like a command is easy enough. But turned out it's still like a steep learning curve unless you're outside, unless you're inside our community. So it was actually ended up like a very slow experience for those who are not proficient with our commands. So we shifted to more like a UI-based approach for data wrangling while keeping the step-based approach, which is like kind of a dplyr-centric world. But also we put like, we start building tons of dialogue UI for almost like every single R command. So we introduce a column header menu, and then so you can find each dialogue easier based on the data type and the column and so on. And then like we try to build like make that a sort of like a user experience as intuitive as possible, manipulating the data with various type of the functionality. So that was 2018, and since then, we've been improving and then redesigning the UI to make it easier for more people to do the data wrangling. But this paradigm also had a problem. We started noticing an anomaly. Still even with the UI, still like you need to learn which UIs to use and how to use them, right? So many UI actually we ended up building, but also like, if you are new to Exploratory, that you get kind of confused because there's so many things to do in just nature of the data wrangling itself. And then need to follow how this whole UI works. So, like if maybe like you need to group the data first, then you can actually do certain sort of, window calculation type of things. And so on. So that you sort of like need to understand how it works in Exploratory. So you have to adapt to that product or the tool. And then like, unless you're familiar with the Exploratories and this UI paradigm, it takes actually time. And also compared to programming, sometimes UI takes more time because you have to click around and then click on a bunch of buttons and select things and then like, open a different dialogue and moving between the dialogue types of things. So that's actually, we thought was preventing more adoption in terms of being able to do the data wrangling. Then what happened was like around the 2022 through the last couple of years, this whole new AI thing started showing up, and then not just showing up, but also progressing like crazy. And if you are in the community of the data, doesn't matter like what type of data, but not just data. Sorry, like if you you live on this planet, there's no one day like you don't hear about the AI. I'm sure like most of you guys are using like some sort of like a Chat GPT or Claude or Grok or whatever that is. Now this AI, sort of like a generative AI thing, it becomes more norm and every day. And then they're progressing so fast and so dramatic. But at the same time, maybe because of that progress, this new interface appears, which is a prompt. interacting with the AI, get some answers, get some documents or images, whatever that is. Like you use prompt, you use actually text input with a natural language to interact with the AI. I thought that at the beginning, I was not sure because I'm not a big fan of writing things to do things. So, but it turned out like a lot of people, like most people, are very sort of like kind of got used to it. And then this is a kind of new way, new type of the interface appeared. So this is a condition of paradigm shift, or you can say this is the same thing for like a disruptive innovation as well. First, you have the problems or like the dissatisfaction in terms of data wrangling. Like I said, like this UI-based model has some problems, and then some users are not, satisfied because of the slowness and functionality and so on. And then, but if we have a new technology, in this case, this like an AI as a new technology, and then if we create a simpler solutions, so like that means like a faster and more efficient. You don't have to learn like various different type of the UIs, and then like new mindset, which we can actually take advantage of now that more people getting used to this sort of like typing a natural language in your own words or your own language to interact with data. So if we can have those three together, then we thought maybe I think the data wrangling needs some change. And that's where from command to dialogue UI to prompt, and that's what that data wrangling with AI prompt that we introduced in version 12. So it's I'm gonna quickly introduce the demo, but let me just introduce what it is first. So by clicking on this button called AI Wrangling, you get this prompt UI where like you can type like whatever like you want to do with the data. So let's say, for example, like you might want to extract certain text from from a particular column. You just type like extract the company name from the company information column or something like that. So you can ask in your language, or if you're English speaking, that you can ask in the plain English, and it will generate the R script to do the job. And then you might have known the exploratory is behind the exploratory or underneath the exploratory is the R is running. It's always from the beginning, still today. So it actually produced the R script that actually runs behind the scene, but now you can see it. And then it explains what the function, each of the functions it does in each step. It can be in a multiple step. It can be just a single step. But regardless, it explains the function itself, but also the overall, like what it does. So if you're familiar with R, if you want to understand what the R script is doing, you can actually take a look at the function use section. If you don't care about the R, you're not really like, familiar, comfortable with it, then you can see expected result to see if you run this, what is going to happen. And if you want to actually go more advanced, you can actually directly update the R script the way you want. And also, you can iterate on improving the prompt. So I'm going to do this type of thing, what it exactly means in the next demo. But these are the things you could do. So, just an example, just so many things you can do. But for example, you can extract or remove or replace the words or text in the text data, or you can convert data types, or you can join with multiple data sets, or you can merge, so you can bring the columns or bring the rows. You can remove some rows or you can filter the rows, and you can create a calculation. And also, not just creating a calculation, sometimes you might want to create a KPI such as like retention rate or NPS or something like that. If you have the right data set, you can actually write it, a KPI name, and you can actually get it too. So I'm going to show you in a demo as well. So let's quickly take a look at what it does, what you can actually do. So here I have this data. Okay. This is GDP data. I think we downloaded this data from where World Bank, I think. But anyway, so sometimes you downloaded the data from that type of organization. They give you the data in almost like it's kind of nice to see in Excel. So, for example, in this data, like, every year, like all those years are spread out through the columns. So this is actually maybe okay in the world of Excel, but it's actually horrible when it comes to like visualizing data. When you want to see, let's say, the trend of the GDP, like you want to have one column of the years. So this type of the data is called wide data, and then what you want to do is like transform this wide data to long data. But most people, like including myself, like didn't know like the name, that type of the data format. So, what typically you think is like, oh, you know what? Like, these columns, year columns, can you bring those columns into the one single row? No, sorry, one single column or something like that. So that's the kind of thing this AI prompt will help you. So here we introduce this AI wrangling button. Um, you can click on it and you get this AI prompt. So let's say maybe like a transform or maybe like a convert or either way. I'm going to use the word transform um, from an year columns into a single column. And let's see what this is going to do. So I'm hoping all these columns from, let's say, like starting from 1960 all the way to 2023 into a single column. And if you happen to be familiar with R, this pivot longer, that's the function to actually transform the wide format to long format. And it says that columns is from 1960 to 2023 because I said like year columns. And then this AI appropriately figured it out what are the columns that actually contains the year information. And then this one is sometimes, it actually adds extra step, which is mutate. Mutate is actually do the create calculation command, but as numeric. So after like transforming it, and then this column is going to be created called year, and we want to make sure that year column to be a numeric column so that you can use it at maybe like let's say later on to assign to x-axis to see the trend. Okay, and then so this is like the R command, but the important thing is here, even if you're not sure like what the hell is this like a pivot longer command or function, you can see under the function use, and it said transform data from wide format to long format, and then it explains what it is. Also, like if you're not really, you're kind of like intimidated by this kind of functions, you can take a look at the expected result. This is more intuitive way of like explaining what actually this command or script will do. Okay, so let's say transform the data and create two new columns, remove any rows where GDP values are missing or NA, and convert the year column from character to numeric format. And at the end, it gives you the examples after the rows and after this, you run the script, and then how the data would look like. Okay, so if I click on this run as a step, and then this is the data would look like. So now, like I addressed the problem of this, like of all the years, throughout the columns, and I brought into columns, one single column. Then I can actually go to the chart, for example, and then let's say I'm going to create a new chart, and then here's a line chart and the x-axis, and I can assign the year, and then the y-axis to be GDP, and then color to be maybe like a country name. There's so many countries, so like I just limit to the 100. Okay, so once you can address this type of the data wrangling problem, and then your visualization or the chart creation become much easier. Now, another thing I want to do is here is I have a population data frame here on the left-hand side. I already imported. This data has a country and a population year and a population number itself. So I want to bring this population numbers into this GDP data so that I can calculate GDP per capita for each country. So what I can do is, in that case, click on the AI wrangling button. Then what I want to do is like join with the population data. And at this point, though, there's one thing I recommend you to do is use the dollar sign. Then that will list all the data available in the same project in Exploratory. And then, like, let's say in this case, I'm a population. Once I select it, it becomes kind of like a blue, like a box. And in this way, I forgot to actually explain before, which is that when you run this, it says sample size 30. That means randomly select the 30 rows and then send it to the exploratory server and then send it to, we actually use currently the Anthropic's Claude AI service. So we put this data as part of the prompt text, not for the model to learn, but just simply paste it in the prompt as a text, so that it gives some kind of a context for the AI before it decide what R script to build or generate. But if you select the population on another data frame in this format, then what it's going to do is not just the sample data of this current data frame called GDP, but also the population data. So the 30 rows of the population, 30 rows of GDP, and paste that in a prompt and send it to AI. So that way, like AI can look at that data and then can generate our script better. Sometimes, like you want to actually see what values are in that data, then decide, let's say, like which column to use to join the data sets and so on. If you're not comfortable sending that data, then you can always select the 0. That means it will send only the column names and then a data type, such as numeric or character. And most of the time, actually, that's good enough for AI to generate our script. So it really depends. Sometimes you actually need to look at that data to see, like, for example, how to convert the data type or how to extract a certain type of the text data and stuff. Then you might want to select the 10, at least 10 or 30 rows as a sample data. But if you're just doing some kind of like, let's say like, hey, calculate GDP divided by year or something like that, then you don't really need to send that data, right? So depends like how you want to do. You can actually set this setting as a default by system setting from this menu. Okay. And then you can set it 0. And then and then that means every time you open this prompt dialog, it's always 0. And then like you can switch to like 30 or other numbers only when you need it. Okay. But also, like we don't use this data, like even like when you set 30, we don't keep that data. We just bypass it. So like this request goes to the exporter server, we call Claude service, and we just bypass it. We don't store, we don't look at it, and we have no access to that data. Okay. But anyway, so let's continue. So like join with population data. And then I just click on, I just hit the enter key, and then it will find which column to join these two data frames. Okay. And in this case, it find a country name on a country, and that's good. But then like, I actually know there's a year column here. So I want to actually join this data frame based on not just country, but also the year. So like Aruba's 1986 data should be matched to Aruba's 1986 population data. Right. So in that case, you can actually add the column name here. So let's say that by using country name and year. Sometimes it actually automatically pick up like which columns to use and if they are like too appropriate. But if that doesn't work, then you always want to actually specify more like kind of specific things. Okay, in this case, it correctly matching the country name equal country. These two data frames have slightly different names for the each for each column information. So the year equal population year and so on. Again, you can take a look at either function use or expected result and see like what actually is this is going to do. And then if it looks good, then you can actually run the step. And like I said before, you can actually click on this edit button to directly customize this R script as well. If you like to do. Okay. Anyway, so like you could click on this run step, and then nicely the population data came. Okay. And then it seems like there's a NA value, but probably like some of the country missing the population information in the population data. Okay. So that looks good. So now, like I like to calculate GDP per capita, and this is where this type of AI prompt is pretty nice, which is, let's say like I want to do like a calculate GDP per capita. I don't have to, specifically say like, GDP divided on like, forward slash population or like, divide GDP by population. I mean, it does work, but sometimes you can just say more like GDP per capita. And what this is going to do is because GDP per capita mean, like you want to divide the GDP by population, so it automatically understand it or interpret it, your intention, and then create the column with that formula. Again, you can take a look at what this is going to do, and then run as a step. Okay, and every time you create right-hand side, it will, if you move the mouse over, you can see what exactly that R script is doing. But also note that this one is, let's say like you imported, update, let's say like you're accessing the SQL data or like the source CSV or Excel files being updated. And what you can do is like you can click on this like a re-import data, right? And then like you click on the number 7 step, and then all the steps will run again to reproduce all those data wrangling steps. At that point, it is not going to run the request of the prompt or like accessing the AI, right? It doesn't have to, because right-hand side, all it does is running those R script that already been generated. Okay, so that's why like when you update the data, whatever the stuff, what you publish to the exploratory server and schedule it, it actually does is the R and running the R, not the prompt. So prompt is when you click on this and then like you hit the enter key and to generate the R script, and that's it. Okay, so now like I have the GDP per capita, that looks good. Another thing I like to show you is you can do the filtering operation with this AI prompt as well. When you actually do, let's say like I want to keep only the latest information, latest year, right? So like if you want to do like let's say keep only the rows with the latest year. And then this is going to do is like find the latest year of this data and then keep only the rows with that, let's whatever the number of that latest year. So it happened to use, in this case, max function, which is going to find the max value of the year, in this case, the 2023. So if I actually run this, and then it keeps only the 2023 year, year of the countries, and which is nice. But the problem though here is that like some countries disappear. So in this now starting like Angola, Albania, but if I go back, there was like Aruba, and Aruba disappeared, and that's because Aruba all the years up to only 2022. So sometimes some countries don't have that latest year. So what you want to do here is to find the latest year in each country and then keep that row so that you're going to have all the countries data, but also latest year of each country, right? So that's what I want to do here. So I'm going to open that same prompt again, and I'm going to fix it. How I can fix it? So keep only the rows with the latest year for each country. You don't have to follow particular grammar or anything. And especially like English is not my first language. So like my grammar is horrible. So you don't have to copy my grammar here. But as long as you explain, and then typically, I'm sure like you've been using, some kind of AI service. So, AI will understand your intention. But recommendation is that more specific is always better. So you start with the abstract, but if it's not working, try to be specific. Okay, so in this case, let's say like I'm going to hit the enter key, and now I'm hoping that it's going to generate the R script to find the latest year for each country. To do, it actually added like this group by statement. That means it grouped the data by the country and then run this max function, which is find the latest year of each country. So it could be 2022 for Aruba, 2023 for Japan, and so on. And then, if I run this step, and then nicely Aruba shows up again, and Afghanistan also. So 2022, 2023 depends on each the country, which year was the last year. Okay, so that's kind of like a basic of it. So you can actually, I haven't done this aggregation, but you can also do the aggregation as well. So let's say like, hey, give me the average of the GDP or a total of GDP or something like that. But here, like we did a calculation, we did a join, we did a filter, and we also transformed the data formats from wide data to long data. Okay, so I want to show you two more quick examples here. So let's say you have the data like this. This is like NPS survey data. So when you do the survey asking like, hey, would you recommend our product or service to your friends or other people? And then like ask them to score from the 0 to 10. 10, you're going to highly recommend to others, and 0, then not at all. And then, so get that 0 to 10, that's easy. So, but the challenge for the calculating NPS, Net Promoter Score, is that like if your score is like a 9, 10, that's considered as a promoter, and 7, 8 is a neutral, and then less than 6 is something called detractor. So you want to actually calculate the ratio of a promoter, and then you want to calculate the ratio of detractor. And then from promoter ratio minus detractor ratio, that becomes NPS. I know there are a lot of words. So you can actually do with the UI, but you need sort of like a 2 steps, and depends how you do it. And then this is actually the version that I created with the UI. And then you use this aggregate or summarize data dialog. And inside, you want to use something called, you got to create some conditions to say like greater than 9. And then you want to calculate, and you want to use this something called like a count if function, and so on. Oops. I'm going to click on that. And then here you have to select a particular function. And this is the one like I was talking about. Like you have to know how to use this tool, or how to use this UI, or even in this case of what menu to use. That's the challenge of the UI. But now when you have something like this, NPS is like a very very known KPI or some kind of scoring. Then you can actually ask, just calculate NPS score. And then it is going to do such calculation that I explain in my too much explanation way. So here it does figuring out like a greater than 9 or less than 6, and then like you do some kind of like a minus of promoters of the detractors. Again, you can actually read what exactly doing each step. And then if you're okay with it, and you can just run it. And then now like I can see, oh, okay, the NPS score is 50 because the promoter is 65, detractor is 15. But here though, this original data, when I click on date, they're from the 2020 March to 2020 August. So it seems like there are various NPS survey have been done. So what I want to do is I want to calculate this NPS by monthly. in that case, not just being able to calculate this type of the KPI or score or metrics, but also you can set like, hey, can you calculate by months? And or if you happen to have this, some kind of like segment information or maybe customers, plan, subscription plan information, you can group by that as well. And here it's smart enough. It look at the date column and then extract the month's information and group by the months. Again, you can take a look at what functions use and what expected result showing. And if it looks okay, I'm going to just run it. Then I get NPS score for each month, starting from March all the way to August as well. Okay, so you can actually do data wrangling, but many times like people, when I say data wrangling, people expect like sort of like a cleaning up the data, transforming the data, but sometimes you just want to do calculation. That itself is also considered as a data wrangling when we say. Okay, the another thing is it's already time is kind of pushing, so I'm gonna just do one last demo. Here, sometimes I'm not sure like you have, you ended up getting the data like this. This is where like data wrangling gets really challenged. When you import the data from Excel, like I show you like some wide data at the first example, but this also like, hey, where is the column names? And sometimes when you look at the Excel, kind of like okay because Excel, sometimes you have like a 3 or 4 columns, sorry, 3 or 4 rows, and then like by reading couple of rows, and you understand like which what this each column means or what this each sort of metric means. So in this case, this is like Japanese data, like a vaccination by model, or like actually like how many times you do the boosting or whatever. Here you can see like a vaccination count and excluded count vaccination rate. So this X3 third column to fifth column is that information, but that's for the first dose. So I have to look at the second row to understand what these are. And then the sixth to eighth, similar information, but these are for the second dose. So it's kind of like hierarchical information as sort of like, what each column represent. And then the first 2 columns, the column name information are actually in the first row. So this is all over the places. And then that's where like sort of like a data wrangling is, you can actually do it, but it's very like a tedious. So most of the time you ended up going to the Excel and then manually changing it and then bring it back to, tools like Exploratory. But this is where like really this type of the AI prompt shines. So let's say like if I open this prompt, and then all you need to write is that, let's say, so update the column names based on the first row through maybe like a fourth, this is like a fourth row information. And then let's see like how this is going to do. Sometimes I write like from first row to fourth row, and then this today I'm actually using this through, and I hope this is going to work. But that's the beauty of the AI. It can actually, you don't have to be like exactly the same. It's not like you're writing a SQL query. Okay, so looks good. So it seems like first dose and vaccination count to rate, and then after that from the X6 to X8 using the second dose, and the first column the prefecture and the total vaccination that's coming from the first row, and then as a bonus. It is actually calling this slice function, which is basically, it says -1 to -4, meaning like removing from the first row to fourth row. It actually explains here, remove the first row, first 4 rows of the data after renaming the column names. Okay, so that looks good. So if I run this step, and then nicely, all the column names becomes more readable or more intuitively understand. Okay, so this data wrangling is really opening a new paradigm where not just doing the typical aggregation, calculation, filtering, joining kind of operation, but it's doing something that could be like not possible before. But by combining that AI and also this like natural language, now you can attack or tackle the some challenging data wrangling problems, sort of like first time in the history. Okay, so let me go back to the slide again, and I want to explain this how this works part. Okay, so um, you might be familiar with something called RAG. So typically, like when you interact with ChatGPT or Claude, whatever the service, you write text in a prompt, and then the prompt text will be sent to the ChatGPT or Claude, that kind of service, and you get generated answers. But then you can actually do is that like if you implemented something like this, a kind of RAG system that basically does is like you write text, and then the text will be sent to query against your document database and then find the similar documents and then put those document information or text information from the documents as part of the prompt and then send to the whatever the AI service. That way AI has more context, so use the AI knowledge plus your knowledge and then generate the answers. So therefore, like you ended up getting more localized, more like your personalized answers, right? So version 11, we introduced something called semantic search engine at the exploratory server. So when you go to our website and you go to the click on the search button, you can find a similar document search already. And that's been like in last couple of months now. So we actually use the same search engine that we have at the server. So every time you write something, and then like, we take that text plus that sample data, and then sorry, that sample data is a little bit later. So like we take that text and then go against the exploratory's search engine and then find a similar information, meaning many of the how-to documents and also the functional references and then also code examples and stuff like that we wrote over the last, like let's say like 9 years of the exploratory history. We have tons of documents. And then we find information and similar documents and put that thing as part of the prompt. And at this point, the inside the prompt, your text, like your prompt text, and similar documents, and then the sample data, and then those information will be sent to the cloud, and then cloud will generate on top of that based on that information. So therefore, that whatever the R script being generated, it tend to be better than the one that you actually go to ChatGPT or Claude and by yourself. Okay, so that's what's happening. Therefore, when you think about once you understand this, and then, so you might wanna, if something doesn't work, and then let us know, and then we can actually keep improving, our side of things, fine tuning side of things as well. Okay, so the same Thomas Kuhn, he made a lot of interesting quotes and very useful quotes. And one of the things he said was that the answers you get depend upon the questions you ask, and sounds clever. But so best practices, I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of like, how you can start in a more efficient way. So basic is, like, I think I already said this, but you want to start with abstract. Hey, this is AI, right? So like you don't have to like write everything. Like sometimes the AI is smart enough to understand what you want to do. But if that doesn't work, try to be specific. So let's say in the column names, sometimes you don't have to specify the particular column name. Like AI thinks that, oh, you're talking about this column. But it's always better to give the name of the column. You don't have to be like exactly matching most of the time. So let's say like, sales underscore, like a month or something like that. You don't have to put like underscore type of the symbol, but again, the more information is usually the better result. And then, so for example, evaluate, if you ask evaluate, typically we return like true or false and like logical column. But if that doesn't work, you can literally say, hey, return true or something like that. So start with the abstract and try to be more specific if, as you go, as you improve the quality of the output. Okay. And also grouping. I showed you in some example, but you can do the grouping functionality, especially when you want to aggregate, let's say like sales total and a number of orders type of things. So you can do like using by or for each or something like that, as long as it gives that information. It doesn't have to be just one. Like you can say like by market and months and then by segment and some and so on, and it actually does that multiple grouping as well. And then, like I showed you in the demo, you want to use dollar sign, then it will give you the list of the data frames available in your project. And then that way, this request will include the sample data from the target data frame. And then that way, you ended up getting better result. Again, if if your request is simple enough, you don't have to, but I recommend include that. At least have the column names and the data type. That will help the AI to come up with a nice join R script. Okay. And also one thing, I didn't have time to do the demo, but you can actually work with the text data, right? So like let's say like remove certain text or replace certain text with something else and that kind of stuff. That's also really this AI prompt shines. But when you specify particular word, I recommend you use either single quote or double quote to surround that particular word. The reason behind this is, for example, if you say like remove capital from the investor column, and then like I explained in the RAG system, like how this whole AI prompt works behind the scene, it actually take this prompt text and then do that similar document matching first. And so it's kind of stupid, I know, but if you have the word like a capital, sometimes it grabs some documents about uppercase, lowercase, capital case kind of documents, so which basically ended up distracting, and then you get kind of like a simple result as this is like a first one at the above, which is nothing wrong about it. It works. But the problem is what we want to get is a second one. Second one actually works even better because it gives you that sort of like argument of like, hey, you want to ignore the title on a case, like uppercase, lowercase thing, and then just match whatever. Another thing is like after you remove certain word, and then hey, you want to remove extra space or not. So if this second one, from my point of view, is better. So that's the kind of difference. So you can start with the first one. You don't have to type like a double quote or single quote, but if you don't get the kind of like some result that you expect, I recommend you to use a single quote, double quote. Sometimes even the column names works better with a single quote, but so far most of the time, like I never really use a single quote or double quote, and it works. So only things are not working. Okay. And also the clean up column names. I showed some of the demo, but you can do a lot of things. And say like you have the long column names, you want to actually shorten them. Sometimes actually I do demo in English. Sometimes I do demo in Japanese. So what I do is like, hey, can you translate these column names to Japanese or English? Can you translate these values to English or something like that? So there's so many things you can actually do, including the column names wrangling as well. Okay. So, so let's brush up, and then I like to talk about roadmap and then some of the extra information. So roadmap, which is basically a release schedule, is that so we just released version 12, which is the first iteration of AI prompt, data wrangling with AI prompt. Next month, we're planning to release that patch, which is probably is going to be like 12.2 or 3 patch. It depends on like, how much issues we get from the customers. But otherwise, we are planning to release something in May. And then we're going to keep enhancing the chart functionality. Nothing to do with AI, but just we want to actually make sure like our users can use our chart to visualize data easier. And also along with that, like we want to make sure like improve the KPI creation part of it by AI prompt. Still, already today you can do like let's say retention rate, churn rate, MRR, that type of KPI. You can actually when you have the data and you can actually write it and you ended up getting that kind of calculation same way like I did with NPS, but we want to actually expand and we want to do the testing and make sure like all the KPI type of things work nicely. And then in June, we are targeting for next iteration of the data wrangling with AI prompt. And so we want to provide more like suggestions and preview and auto debugging and fix functionality as well. And also we are planning to host our local LLM. Like I said, like we are today using the Claude service from Anthropic, but we want to actually host our own version of it on at our server. So that's we are targeting for June. And in the summer, when we say summer, that's between July, August, September. So you know which most likely. But we are targeting for summer release for the version 13. And there, like we are going to do more like auto data diagnostics. So like you can click a button and it will suggest what you want to actually do with that data to clean up the data instead of you come up with a prompt. That's we've been experimenting internally. And also, like we want to use the AI in the reporting or note creation. Another thing is like analytics. Most of folks like you use when you use analytics, it's easy to use, but it's hard to interpret what that produces as an output. So we want to actually introduce the button to give you better interpretation of those outputs. Okay, so last, so why data wrangling? We are doing the AI for the data wrangling. Hey, isn't it Exploratory is a data science platform? You more like doing a data analysis or data visualization thing. Well, this is the elephant in that room. From outside, like outside of data science community, people think it's like, oh yeah, like you do all those things. But you do something like analysis, right? Like a statistical analysis, multivariate analysis, or you're building a prediction model and then text analysis and so on. But when you're inside the data science community, or you are actually doing the work of the data analysis or data science, you know that majority part of you do is actually data wrangling. You create the charts and visualizing things, but most of the time you're actually kind of manipulating the data and stuff. You actually do the data analysis, but you realize your data is not in the right form for your analysis, or you have to remove or you have to transform the data to make your data analysis better. So you ended up spending a lot of time in the data wrangling. So we think that is the biggest challenge in the data science, or especially in the context of analyzing data to make better decisions. So this is why from the beginning of Exploratory, we always focus on this data wrangling aspect. So this time we bring this AI prompt experience in the data wrangling, and I hope this is going to make this data wrangling more accessible for more casual users as well, as long as the advanced user. I think I'm pretty good at data wrangling stuff, especially, hey, I build exploratory UI and, our command UI and all that. But once I started AI prompt, at the beginning, I was a little bit suspicious, but now like it's hard for me to go back to UI because AI prompt, writing that, natural language is much easier and much more efficient. Okay, but what not to change? Like from the beginning, the command UI, we always had the right-hand side, the step, and even like a dialog UI, we had, menu, GUI paradigm, we had the steps on the right-hand side. And with this command, we still have the steps on the right-hand side. And that's because we believe working with the data step by step is a way to go. So you can write the prompt text, and then you can write a lot of stuff. I think it's right now like you can almost like write like 1,000 letters or something like that. So you can make your prompt complex and try to accomplish so many things at the one single shot. But I recommend just you go step by step. That way, you're going to have like a right-hand side, those steps, and you can go back and forth, make sure the data is in the format that you expect, and then you can test it, and then you can actually even improve it or update later on. And I think the work with the data step by step is much more intuitive and then readable. Makes it maintenance easier as well. Okay, so to close this seminar, I think it's not really just about this paradigm shift is not really just about the new tool. It's about the new way of thinking. So new mindset in this new paradigm is really, I mean, used to be like, how can I use this tool like Exploratory to do what I want to do with this data? So you have to figure it out how to use it, how to control, operate, that kind of stuff. But this new era of the paradigm is that how can I express what I want to do? And it's this new sort of like mindset. It takes some time to realize, but once you realize, how kind of dark the old paradigm was. So we just released this like a new first iteration of AI prompt. So it's always when the new paradigm comes in, there's some kind of like a gap between what you can do with the new thing and what you could do with the old thing. And so therefore, like this whole UI based thing is still there. And we're going to continue to support the UI dialogue and the menu. And we might even like keep improving in some area. But our focus on the new thing, this new AI prompt. So that area, like you're going to see like significant improvement, and then we're going to quickly close the gap and make sure we can deliver the quality of the functionality and the service. And then this version 12 is available today. You can actually go to our website, go to the download, export to desktop, and then download the version 12 for the Mac, and then there's a version 12.1 for the Windows. One thing is that it's still like not available for academic and public plans. We are working right currently to make that available for those versions as well. But today, if you are on the personal or the business plan, then you can access this functionality right away. But also though, like you have to be in online mode. You cannot be offline, and this has to send a request to the server. Okay, that's it for the seminar. My email is kan@exploratory.io. So please, if you have any question, please reach out to me. And also we have the Twitter at Exploratory Data. Sorry, not Twitter anymore, X. So please follow for the announcements. And with that, if you have questions, please let me know. And thank you for joining and listening to this seminar.